Welcome everyone to today's webinar on grassroots innovations. We will wait just one more minute before we officially kick off to wait also for the listeners to join. Sorry, yeah, I would like to ask you, if you are not shy, feel free to turn on your camera, but please make sure you are muted so we don't disturb our speakers while they're presenting. My name is Michaela, I'm Communications Officer at IHS, and today I'll be the technical support of this webinar. And I just want to let you know that the session is being recorded. You can later on watch it again on our YouTube channel. And we would like to invite you to introduce yourself in the chat, where you come from, your name, the organization that you represent, and maybe what you also want to learn from this webinar. Please feel free to put your thoughts and questions in the chat. I think from here, Elena, I'll give the floor to you.
Thank you, Mika. Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar on Grassroots Innovations, How to Move to Scale. My name is Elena Marie Enseñado from the Institute for Housing and Urban Development Studies, or IHS, and I'll be your host for this session. Today's discussion will focus on grassroots innovations and organizations and how to scale their innovations for long-term sustainable impact. This event is part of our webinar series aimed at fostering city-to-city learning for sustainable development. In previous webinars, we have explored how cities, through local governments, learn from each other, and we also discussed the role of networks in driving sustainable urban development. If you are interested in learning more about the previous webinars, we have shared the links in the chat box for your reference. This webinar is hosted by IHS in collaboration with UN Habitat, Erasmus University Rotterdam, Rotterdam's Vital Cities and Citizens, Closer Cities, and Justra Cities Network. For this webinar, we will begin with an introduction to grassroots innovations, followed by short presentations from representatives of different organizations from around the world. We will also dedicate time for Q&A and interactive discussions in parallel breakout rooms. Finally, we will reconvene for plenary sharing to discuss key takeaways, followed by closing remarks. Now, I would like to introduce Jan Fransen from IHS, who will share insights into the concept of scaling grassroots innovations. Jan is a lead specialist and assistant professor in urban economic development and resilience. A former deputy director and head of education and training at IHS, he currently researches and coordinates research on smart and resilient cities at Erasmus University Rotterdam. Jan, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Elena. And it is very nice to see so many people attending this webinar. Welcome to all of you. And the idea for this webinar came when we had a grassroots assembly during the last World Urban Forum in Cairo, which was organized by George from UN Habitat, who is here, and skillfully managed and presented by Mino, who I'm happy is also here. And one of the things that was discussed during this assembly was that we have been talking as grassroots organizations together for a very long time, yet it seems it doesn't really scale. And of course, we now have very tough times. Donald Trump has just been elected. US aid projects are under serious trouble. And it seems not only Donald Trump, but also other similar-like politicians are coming to power and are more likely and willing to talk to the private sector than to grassroots organizations. As a result, there appears to be less room for grassroots organizations and a great need to look for new networks, new financial streams, and new governance mechanisms to be able to share what we are doing. And now I want to share my screen for 1 second. I hope you can all see it. Very briefly, there are 5 different forms of scaling. The first is scaling in. And scaling in is something actually grassroots organizations are very good at. It is improving the link to the community and the capacity of the community and reaching the hard to reach. And it's really the bread and butter of grassroots organizations. Scaling down means that grassroots organizations would work together also with local governments and other to help local governments to scale down their activities to the marginalized communities and the hard to reach groups. Also, this is something GROs are doing on a large scale, though whether it's successful or not depends to a large extent on whether governments and others are willing to listen. The next three, I think, are more up for discussion. The first one of those is scaling out. We would like to expand our activities to reach more people. And an example of that in Kenya would be the special planning area in Mukuru, one of the biggest informal settlements, which enabled a settlement-wide upgrading, reaching out, expanding the work to many more people. And the second way of scaling out is to replicate what you are doing. And an example here, again from Kenya, is that there is a network, or actually many networks of river regeneration, community-based organizations who want to clean the river, green the river, and prevent flooding. And the networks aim to replicate these on a much larger scale. A fourth form then is to scale up. And that really aims for policy and governance changes within primarily the government system, so that the government itself takes up the role that grassroots organizations are doing, and then work with grassroots organizations to reach the hard to reach people. And an example of that in Kenya is that the spatial planning area law allows for participatory upgrading of informal settlements. While the law is excellent, implementation unfortunately stays behind a little bit as an indication of how difficult it is to scale. And the last form of scaling is scaling deep. This is really trying to get long-term policy changes going, systemic changes, as a result of which marginalized communities become part and become included in urban development and governance. In this particular webinar, I will stop talking now because I'm also here mainly to listen. We are listening to experiences from many grassroots organizations who have been able and are able to scale their networks, to scale their governance mechanisms to various actors, and to look for new forms of finance. So Elena, I'm really looking forward to those inspirations and the following discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. And now we'll hear from our four incredible grassroots organizations. Each presenter will have around 5 minutes to share about their organizations. And we will start with Rafael Sotomayor, Director de Territorio at TECHO, Peru. Rafael is passionate about making a difference in vulnerable settlements where he leads community development initiatives and infrastructure improvement projects. He's all about bringing people together, local leaders, volunteers, and strategic partners to improve living condition. Rafael's approach is all about collaboration, active participation, and coming up with innovative community-driven solutions. Rafael, over to you.
Thank you, Elena, for your introduction. I will try to share my presentation. I have it right here. Okay, so as Elena was saying, my name is Rafael Sotomayor. I'm the Director of Territory of TECHO in TECHO, Peru. TECHO is a Latin American organization that's presented in 18 different countries throughout Latin America. In Peru, we have been working from 2005. This year, we accomplished 20 years working in this country. A few quick numbers: we are trying to reach our 6,000 emerging housing building in the region. We're working with 10 different regions within the country. We have over 700 habitat projects implemented in different communities, and we have mobilized around 26,000 volunteers during all these long and beautiful 20 years we've been working with different communities. Why do we exist? Our main focus is making sure like there is nobody that lives on a dirt floor. Like we try to make sure like people get basic conditions they need in order to thrive in those communities and change their own communities. And this is sometimes easier said than done. What we try to do is that these communities empower themselves, and all the problems that they found regarding infrastructure, community resources, community capacities are taken care by themselves. So that's why we have this motto that everything that we do, it starts in the communities. We are a community-driven organization where the communities that we work are the main focus of our implementation. Okay, so in order to do this, we have discovered that the best way to work with them is having a cycle style working model, where we identify who those communities that we need to work are, and we identify which communities are in a process that are really organized, that they can access or try to be in a position they can take it, like make sure like they can use the tools that we are going to give them to them. So it has community is formalized, they have community leaders present that they participate on their work days. Once we identify these communities, we present ourselves, and we together with the community members, we diagnose the problems that this community have. Everything in this diagnosis comes from information the community has. So if they have issues with land tenure, if they have issues with water and sanitation, if they have issues with paved roads or different community infrastructure, all this knowledge comes from the community, and we also try to see which solutions the community can come up with in order to solve these problems. So we organize with the community. We begin working with them, and we act on this solution to these problems that community has evaluated during the whole year. So we have a whole year of working with this community, where we continuously ask the community what is going to be your focus. So if your focus is going to be, like I said, like water and sanitation, let's focus on water and sanitation. And eventually, at the end of this year, we evaluate what we have done with the community and what we haven't done with them, why we didn't accomplish our goals, or how the community accomplished those goals that we may not have on first glance thought it was possible. And with that, we continue working with this community. So our working model is making sure that these communities are what we call permanent communities. We continue working through several years in order to make sure that they can have access to different solutions to their problems. Okay, so this has made sure like we have been able to continue working, and we have been able to build trust on those communities, and this helps us also to make sure like all the communities around the communities that we're working with begin to see us as a real organization. Sadly, here in Peru, there are different types of organizations that sometimes take advantage of the problems of these communities, and this creates a problem with trust. So make sure like we continue to work in these communities, making sure that we provide them with results, help us to build trust, and now other organizations can come into these communities because they can partner with us. But before getting to that point, we also have a lot about empowering the community leaders with different programs, because our first partners in these communities are the community leaders that are elected by the community. And some of these community leaders, since they don't get any paid or they don't have any extra resources for their position, they need more support in order to make sure that they can provide different programs or projects coming from local municipalities, coming from other organizations, asking for resources to other programs. So we have found that if we empower a lot of these community leaders, the community can continue to work in. Our main goal is to make sure that this community is sustainable in the long term, so we can leave that community and begin working in the community next to them. And one of the many things that people have responded to is these community grants funds that we do in order to make sure the communities like apply to it regarding which project they want to implement in their communities. So let's say we have working with like private organizations in order to provide these funds or this trust to different communities to make sure like they have the staircase they want to build, or the community center they want to construct, or they be able to put a water sanitation project within the communities to make sure they have water through winter, where the water trucks doesn't go up in the hills because it's really muddy. So these driven community projects are the ones who kind of works a lot in order to make sure like we can expand the territory and break those different issues that don't having a trust with the community, or having a representative of the community can begin to work in there. And that's where our partners and their works begin to influence. We have been partnered with private companies, with private organizations, but also with different networks of grassroots organizations. For instance, one of the main partners right now is the Ollas Comunes network that they have appeared in Lima because of the pandemic. And they have a huge network that we support, giving them technical advice on how to implement different programs on water and sanitation. And one of the new ones we have is this project we have regarding the municipality of Bordeaux in France, that since this city is a sister city of Lima, they have a project to make sure like they can provide some resources in order to be able to provide water tanks and water reservoirs in different organizations and different grassroots organizations. So the idea is to make sure like our assets, like the trust the community has in us, and the idea they have that we work really well in different communities, and they want us to be in other communities around them. We can provide that trust and give it to different organizations that want to implement in the territory. And mostly what we try to achieve is to have data of the communities. In Peru, at least, we don't have much data regarding informal settlements, like formal data collected by the government. This year, we have a national census that's supposed to give us more information about how communities are living. But the truth is that most of these communities most government levels doesn't know that these communities actually exist. And the municipality or local government sometimes only go to these communities because of political reasons, to get votes or to make sure like they expand their budget, but not actually know these communities. So we try to provide information to make sure like other organizations can reach these communities and know where to give the resources they need. And of course, everything of this won't be able to happen if we don't have our main workhorse regarding these projects is our young volunteers. So putting together community members with young volunteers from different universities or schools has helped us to understand, has helped them to understand that the situation of poverty and the problems that these communities have, it's a real one. Or sometimes our society doesn't put it bluntly to everybody to explain why these things happens, and we're making sure the next generation knows that these communities exist, that they're not in a situation that it's supposed to be, and the people there are having their rights not respected by our society. Okay? So this is one of the many things that we try to do, expand our networks regarding volunteers, regarding different NGOs, regarding different governments, in order to make sure what we do in these communities is sustainable and we can continue to do it in different communities. Well, that's it pretty much for me. If you have any question, feel free to ask. It's been really we have very brief time to try to explain this, but we're looking forward to any question or anything that you want to say about it.
Thank you very much, Rafael. And we do have time for Q&A after all of the presentation. So if you have already some questions for Rafael, you can also start writing them on the chat box. Thanks, Rafael, once again. And our second speaker is Theresa Carampatana, former national president of the Homeless People's Federation Philippines. Theresa is a passionate community organizer and social activist with over 20 years of experience. She's been a driving force behind the movement for community-led development and resilience, working on mobilizing communities and mapping settlements to upgrading housing and improving access to essential services. Theresa's work is all about building bridges, connecting local communities, government authorities, and civil society to improve housing conditions and push for more inclusive policies that support the urban poor. Theresa, the floor is yours.
Good day, everyone. I'm representing the Homeless People's Federation Philippines, also a affiliate of the Slum Dwellers International. Thank you very much for this opportunity to be able to share with you our insights in the financing models and strategies that we are exploring to amplify the grassroots solutions for the urban poor. So the Homeless People's Federation is a national network of 106 registered urban poor communities spanning all over 3 major regions in the Philippines. Right now, we have around 9,400 family members in different municipalities, promoting community savings as an organizing tool, and the Federation's work really is focused on low-income communities with priority in providing assistance to communities living in high-risk areas. As traditional developments funds declines, I think we must rethink of how we can sustain and scale the efforts that the grassroots communities are doing now. In the 25 years that we have existed, actually, we've been in this work, in this line of work, because of the disaster that has happened in the different communities, and also the eviction, the relocation, that unplanned settlements that is really getting bigger in the country and not supported. Doing this, the way we do it is that we go to a community, or a community can go to the federation, and then we organize community savings, building the trust of the communities to each other, the members, organizing the structures so that they can be supported by the government. So after the organizing, after they've been able to improve their savings or have this amount enough to buy the land, we partner with the national or the local government or an NGO, whatever network that is available that is supporting this work. And so we do this through a blended financing mechanism wherein community savings plus the support from the national government or a local government, because sometimes it's very hard for urban poor groups to be trusted by the government. There are some requisites that really exclude the urban poor in accessing different projects, even the small ones. What more if you're asking millions of pesos for a housing project? I mean, this could really be a hurdle for a community to access financial support or housing or shelter or water or whatever sanitation project that is that they need. So after building their savings, we do community organizing. We help them with their structures, the checks and balances in the community, in their leadership, so that this community association can be sustainable, and building their capacity to manage the resources, to access different kinds of funding, because we know that we can provide everything, and we are not there to provide everything. We want them to be resilient. We want them to be independent, to have that sort of autonomy that they can do, they can plan whatever they want to do, whatever the aspiration is, whatever their problems that they want to tackle as a community. So they have their organizational structure, they have their plans, and then we sort of guide them to implement these plans along the way. And so in this work, the federation was able to purchase around 104 acres of land already for the urban poor. This is composed of mostly community savings. And so what we really believe that if this innovation, actually call it innovation, but we have been doing this for quite some time, but we still believe it's community innovation, because every community that you go to and you build the saving schemes there, and they are innovating it. I mean, they are innovating the process to suit their particular goal, their particular needs. And so innovation comes in, and these communities have been really creative in providing solutions for their problems. And so we're imagining what would be the impact if these saving schemes can be supported by the government to amplify the reach of these saving schemes. I mean, because right now, these schemes are not really in the mainstream. It's like it's like a small. We considered it small because there's a lot of informal settlements that are not doing this yet, because we can't reach them. We don't have that really support, and the mechanism in the government that encourages it. And sometimes the sad part is that it is being discouraged, because actually when you pull people together, pull their funds together, believe in each other, they can do a lot of things, and they can solve a lot of their problems already. And it sort of shifts the power from the government to the people, because now people have voice, people have power, and they can manage their own, and they can be very independent. And so it's scary maybe at some point, but I mean, if you really want change, people, you can rally the poor. You can rally the poor alongside the government to solve their issues together. I mean, in our experience, we have been really struggling in penetrating how to deal with government at sometimes. I mean, we have very good partnership with governments, but most of the local governments and other bodies are really it can be daunting, to address them and to partner with them. And so this community managed fund, this is a form. This form is a collective savings where resources is as seen in our successful communities have been really instrumental in changing changing the lives of the urban poor from informal to formal. And so we have also been thinking about organizing this from an informal savings group to a more structured one, which is now cooperatives, towards the cooperative movement, so that structure can be put in, and people from different walks of lives, even if they're not in the urban poor settlements, can also support the this structure. Peer-to-peer lending is one way that we are advocating, and we are testing in different areas where urban poor communities, if you have extra resources, you can lend to another urban poor communities that want to buy the land, or want to have a title of a land or a piece of land, which is that maybe they have been struggling for several years, because sometimes it took like 5 years, 10 years before you can really have access to this resources. Yeah. And so the um, the enabling mechanism really that we want to see is more collaboration with the private sector, the academic institutions. We have been doing that, but of course we cannot. We are just doing it in the meager funds that we have. I mean, getting support for this action on the ground can really can do wonders for the urban poor communities, because right now we can only serve at least 10-20% of the members that we have, but yeah, we keep doing this because we saw the potential, and we saw the success of the urban poor communities in this arena. And so we are also exploring other mechanisms. For example, in the climate space, we have been contemplating, or right now we're starting to build a community which is we call them resilience hub in the different communities in the urban poor settlements, meaning they don't just
Theresa,
yeah.
apologies for cutting you off. However, as we still have two more presenters, we will accommodate more of the your experiences as well during the breakout rooms. And also, there's also one question for you that you can also address during the chat box. Thank you,
Okay.
apologies.
Sure, no problem. Thank you.
Thanks, Theresa. Our third speaker is Joseph Kimani, the Executive Director of Shack Dwellers International, or SDI Kenya. Joseph is a seasoned community organizer with more than 20 years of experience working with civil society organizations. He's an expert in areas like civic and political rights, peace building, economic development, and governance. Joseph knows Kenya's informal settlements inside and out, and has played a big role in shaping major urban projects. One of his standout achievements is leading the design of the community organization and public participation model for the Mukuru Special Planning Area, a project that aimed to improve the lives of over 100,000 households. Joseph?
Thank you, Elena. Thank you for that kind introduction. I'm supposed to talk about how the innovative grassroots organizations have managed to scale community financing models. And Theresa have been mentioning quite a lot of the similar work that we do, because we all belong to the Slum Dwellers International network. Quite a lot of rituals that are shared across many of the grassroots communities. And I think this is a phenomenon that is needed to be underlined, that there is a lot of effort, energy, innovation from communities that is passed along that requires scaling up, because the work of scaling up will also require the government. At SDI Kenya, of course, our core focus is mainly to see how these community-led initiatives create inclusive cities. In Nairobi, we are talking of over half this population living in the informal settlements, and how the neighborhood and their habitation will be improved through housing and services. This requires quite a bit of focus and intentional programs designed from the government. That has been our core advocacy agenda, to try and support local communities, in this case, the Federation of the Urban Poor, to be able to amplify their voices concerning these priorities. And Theresa mentioned that one key element, especially in communities trying to thrive in the environment deprived of all essential services, is to try and consolidate their own efforts. This we've seen demonstrated quite a lot by women, grassroots women in the informal settlements, coming together to form saving groups, daily saving groups. And this is a practice that has picked very well to the extent of informing the banking system. In Kenya, when we started, the banks were not even accepting money from the urban poor, because they thought they would not meet the threshold that the bank was operating. It was like receiving money was going to bankrupt the bank. And we thought that, as ridiculous as it was, we pushed us anyway to organize as much as possible, support grassroots organizations through peer-to-peer learning. And eventually we saw banks devolving their branches to the grassroots level to be able now to tap to these assets, to these resources that were coming from the urban poor. That method has impacted the community groups, because through those savings, the daily savings, they're able to loan each other to support small and micro enterprises, to support community to access water and sanitation, because they have to pay some deposits to the local authorities for them to get water connection. So these resources have impacted the neighborhoods and have created confidence even to the local authorities to invest more. And this is the case that I think was introduced in Mukuru SPA. We just needed to demonstrate that the community have the ability and the capacity to manage assets or infrastructure for the government to place them there. The other innovation that has been within the SDI is the Urban Poor Funds. And these are revolving funds, basically a facility created to match community savings, more or less close to what you would call blended funds. And communities' funds would be able to access credit through their savings deposits for incremental slum upgrading, incremental development. This would create flexible housing products for the urban poor in an area that most investors are scared of. And I think it's an opportunity that could be expanded so that we don't just place housing investment in the hands of investors who do not understand communities. The other tool that has been used, of course, is expanding the infrastructure development through incremental housing. So this financing has seen us apply tools like community planning, community development planning, and these plans, communities use them to negotiate for resources. So a community will develop their neighborhood plan and lay infrastructure in it, and negotiate with the county authorities that infrastructure will impact on public health, will improve their public health, as well as the livelihood within that settlement. We've seen this again in Mukuru SPA, the Mukuru Special Planning Area, where the government was able to step in and provide infrastructure. And the demonstration again was, we are seeing condominium innovation of a simplified sewer system. So rather than thinking of huge infrastructure development, communities are able to innovate and come up with models that they can be able to link to the grid, but be able to do this at an affordable level. The other area that now we've seen quite a lot of improvement is the climate-linked financing models that are emerging from the different affiliates within SDI. We are seeing green funds. We are seeing community groups. In Nairobi alone, before the government stepped in to put resources, which we are yet to see how they are going to be utilized, community members have contributed, raised their own resources. Yeah, with a little bit of effort now coming from the donor funds, but most of the support is coming from community grassroots organizations, putting their own finances, their own savings to improve their neighborhood. Community innovations are coming in to address local challenges that have not been caused by these communities. And I think that's something that is a bit worrying, because we are pushing the poor we are penalizing the poor for being poor first, and again, asking them to raise their own resources to fix problems that are of city nature. And I think that's an area that will require more interventions. So through the Climate Fund, we've managed to develop what community groups are calling the next level facility, which is basically targeting the marginalized and hard to reach. And I'm careful to use the word hard to reach here. In our context, it means CBOs or localized groups that cannot meet the standards put either by government or any other person for financing. So these are the groups that we've been closely supporting and working together to try and create tools for managing resources at their level without much of accountability challenges that they may experience. So in essence, where we are going now, because we've seen daily savings that have scaled up to the level of the city, have scaled up to attract investors, we are moving at the place where now we need to consider protecting the urban poor resources that are not taken advantage of by those investors who are just interested with profit. So how do we ensure that, yes, we want to attract investors to match, to blend the resources of the urban poor, but in a way that, again, has dignity and respect the integrity of the urban poor and the innovations and the ideas, so that you don't bring money and you bring your ideas, but you bring money and be able to accommodate innovations that are coming from below. So that scaling is important, so that it's not your money, it's not the give of the money dictates the agenda, but actually ensuring that your money is spent where the agenda is well defined by those who are going to use these resources. And that's just what every day when we meet, interact with the urban poor, their major ask is basically, how do we protect ourselves, whether anyone is coming in to do housing, that they do not do housing for their own benefit, but for the common good of their public that is going to benefit in this. So I would probably stop there, because I know a bit of time was taken up there, and interact at the breakout sessions. Thank you, Elena.
Thank you very much, Joseph. And our last speaker is Mino Ramaroson, the Regional Coordinator for Africa and Global Land Specialist from Huairou Commission. A development economist by training, Mino is a passionate rural development expert and activist from Madagascar. Before taking her role as Africa Regional Coordinator at the Huairou Commission, she spent 9 years working with national and civil society organizations as well as an international coalition. Mino brings a wealth of experience to the table, tackling issues like microfinance, education, rural development, and land, all while focusing on both national and regional advocacy efforts. Mino?
Thank you very much, Elena. Am I audible? My internet is a bit dropping a bit, so if it's audible.
We can hear you.
Thank you very much for giving me the floor. So for start, I just want to thank my colleagues, because they made my work really easy, because they gave a lot of examples. So for me, it will be really giving more of the overview, because Huairou Commission is a global grassroots women movement that was created during the first Beijing platforms 30 years ago. So we are gearing up to the Beijing Plus 30. We are present in 45 countries. We have approximately 100 members, but the members can be CBOs or federations that are really huge. So we have around 1 million members in a nutshell. Huairou Commission, based on the needs and the expectation of our membership, designed a
We have
theory
technical
of change, which is really talked about yeah. So our theory of change is around 4 pillars. Our first pillar is about leadership and organizing. The second is about knowledge development and sharing. The third one is about networking and alliance building. For advocacy, which is the fourth, advocacy and lobbying. And then what we do is we have this global platform that Huairou Commission is providing at the global level to bring grassroots women's voice at the forefront, and also the expectation, but it's also give the opportunity for grassroots to understand what are the global frameworks that are happening and what is the global discussion, and how can they bring all this knowledge to the local level. So it's really, and what kind of partnership can be built from the local to the global and vice versa. So that's the importance of maybe our network is really about sharing the knowledge, partnering with others at the global, at the national, at the local level, and also finding out how this knowledge or community-led initiative, grassroots-led initiatives can be upscaled, as Jan was saying. So I'm just going to take one example of what we do, why we are here today, because Huairou Commission is really invested in UN Habitat, and we were part of the founding members of the Global Land Tool Network. And one of the first tools that were developed was the gender evaluation criteria, which is a tool that really helps. A very powerful one, by the way, because it's more than a tool, it's a process. And within the process of analyzing a program, a policy, you bring a lot of stakeholders together. Then you partner together to understand, is the policy or the tool or the project gender sensitive, gender responsive? What can we do as a whole actor, as different actors, to make it gender responsive? And those are the kind of tools that we are really promoting, because it promotes partnership, it promotes a process that we are working together through a certain amount of time. As what Theresa or Rafael was saying, we build trust with the other partners so that we can advance together and share our knowledge, but also the results of what we are doing. That's one example of a tool. And then what we have also designed, for example, in Africa, is the Women Land League Africa. It's a grassroots women-led platform that is really working around how can we share our knowledge, who can we bring into the platform to support us in moving forward, not only in scaling up our initiatives, in sharing our actions, but also in advocating for it, to show the other stakeholders, governments, private sector, that what we do as grassroots groups are also of relevance. And when we talk about it, we talk about really a lot of the challenges that is really happening. And it was touched upon my other colleagues when they were talking about the fact that those are really good initiatives, but not taken upon by the governments, not supported, but at some level only. And that's one of the challenge, getting the seat on the table, keeping the seat, and being heard, because it's not about window dressing. Yes, we have grassroots groups here, but if we are talking about budget allocation, for example, how can we really talk about hearing what the grassroots women or the grassroots or the communities needs when we are talking about budget allocation. That is a very big issue that I think all of us are struggling with and grasping with. And then we still have, when we do, we found a way. For example, when the SDGs came, then we decided, let's localize these SDGs. Let's share that as a tool to our grassroots members, so that now they became the one that in quotes educate the local governments on the SDGs, and it brought them really partnership at the local level, because like, oh, these women are knowledgeable, so let's bring them in, so that so this issue of capacity building, which is very time consuming and also resource consuming, is something that is kind of a challenge, but is a must when you really want to talk about scaling deeper, what was said by Jan at the beginning. And then we are gearing up to the CSW now, 69, which is about Beijing plus 30. And all of this knowledge that we had for the last 30 years, how are we going to bring it up? How can we do more partnership? And we see also that we have aging leaders. How can we really bring in, and I really like the example of Rafael when he said we try to bring in the younger generation, because I think it's something very important that we shouldn't lose focus of the movement that we have built, the partners that we have created at the global, the tackling down to the local, and we are not losing it because we are not renewing our membership basis and our partnership. I'll stop here because I know that we don't have that much time, but I'm happy to talk about more. Yeah, thank you, Elena.
Thank you very much, Mino, and to all the presenters. For our participants, you can please use the chat box function to submit your questions, and I'll direct them to the appropriate speaker. Considering the remaining time, we'll now break into smaller groups to discuss specific themes, namely finance, governance, and networks and partnerships, and each room will have expert discussants. So for finance, we have Joseph Kimani, Theresa Carampatana, and Anthony Boanada-Fuchs, the head of projects and partnerships at IHS. For governance, we have Rafael Sotomayor, Jan Fransen, and George Gachie from UN Habitat Participatory Slum Upgrading Program. And for networks and partnerships, joining Mino, Ramaroson are Esmeralde, Marsman, and Brenda van Breemen-Olij from Rotterdam Municipality. Participants and discussants, please join a breakout room, and we'll reconvene after 20 minutes to share key takeaways.
Okay, so the group was so that we focused on the challenges that grassroots communities have experienced. But I think basically what really struck me in the discussion is that this is a small ask. I mean, a basic housing, basic provision of, I mean, we have been talking about urban informality for the longest time. We have the SDGs. We have we actually highlight how participatory grassroots movements should be in the forefront of addressing their issues. But there's a disconnect between the government support and the mechanism that enables this participation and this community-led, people-driven solutions to be highlighted or be ushered in the formal systems of government. Just the acceptance, the recognition, basic recognition of the rights of the poor in the city, their rights for power, their rights for jobs, decent housing, is not being prioritized. And so we are in this dilemma of how to scale up when there are government resources that should be put in the programs that should be in the mainstream government policies by now, since SDGs would be ending, and then we have not been we said that we are not able um, to to meet the goals of the SDGs. I mean, how many forums should we do? Uh, what what else do we need to present? Because the urban poor and the grassroots movement have been very effective and very successful in presenting themselves as a solution drivers of change. But I think uh, how to hammer this using the UN structures mechanisms in the government policies to really address this issue. I think that's more or less our discussion. Yeah.
Very much, Theresa. Now I would like to call the discussants for the governance group, Rafael, Jan, or George.
Well, we did not really agree who would present back, but I did make some notes, and then Rafael, George, and anybody else, Celine, also come in if you want. I think we had a really amazing discussion on how grassroots organizations get onto the table with the government for long-term and for more longer-term learning. And the first thing that was noticed is that every community is different. So speaking of grassroots is not so useful in itself. We have to prove that we really know the different communities and their needs and their geographies and the like to do so. Second, the aim would then be to work towards longer-term institutional arrangements between grassroots organizations, private sector, and governments. And there were some examples mentioned by Rafael from Latin America, from Uganda, from Rwanda, where this is happening. But at the same time, we discussed that real long-term learning is very difficult. Very often it does break up, or it's not getting replicated to other cities, and that the policy context thereby is really important. So in some regions, it may be easier than others. And at the same time, we all realize that is, I think, the way we feel the governance should move. That's my contribution, and maybe somebody else has something to add.
Rafael or George, any additional points? Otherwise, we can also proceed to the last group. Let's hear it from the Networks and Partnerships group. Mino, Esmeralde, or Brenda?
Yeah, I can start and perhaps the others can add. We had a very interesting discussion about the networks between grassroots organizations. I think it's what Jan was already saying as well. They are very different, and in a way we discussed: is it a problem that they are siloed or not? In a way, it looks that it's good that you are connected as well as grassroots organizations, but on the other hand, that there are duplicates can be good as well. That if one grassroots organization has a problem, another one can, is not dependent on the other ones. So different languages, different impacts. It could be okay, and we've been talking about effective communication as well. But our focus was especially on how can grassroots organizations network more than they do at the moment. So I don't know if the others have additions.
Yes. We talked about this paradox of building, and they said it's high time we have. Sorry. the paradox of needing a strong coalition, strong grassroots coalition, and the fact that duplication and replication is needed for resilience purposes. Many say that the strong coalition of grassroots at the local level will help in breaking the silos, because you have a lot of coalition working on water, on land, on sanitation, blah, blah, blah. And if you have a strong coalition on the ground with defined objectives and vision, then it will be easier to break that silos between different area of work. And then it will be also help in the resource mobilization component in talking with the government, in also minimizing, because there will be coordination. Then we went further and talked about the issue of the dilemma of coordination, like what does we need to have a real coordination and cooperation and co-creation at the local level, because sometimes what Esmeralda was talking about, the heterogeneity of grassroots groups is something that maybe make them not talk together, which may be an issue for coordination. And someone proposed a tool for example, break that silo and that lack of cooperation, maybe through what they call it, technology applicability framework, which is a tool, innovative tools that can be existed. And some of our groups talked about the importance of building capacity when we want to innovate, when we want to use new technologies. And what was talked about was also the issue of timeline. We cannot build coordination like tomorrow, or a strong coalition. Maybe we really need it. We need time, and we need to put effort in it. And when we have a strong coalition, we need to be careful on the weight of its organization, because some can be well connected, others are really not connected. So how can we have everyone in a coalition and having the same power also? I think it was discussed. That's from my side also. Thank you
very much, Mino, and all our discussants for sharing all these insights from the breakout rooms. And now for our closing remarks, I would like to call George Gachie from UN Habitat Participatory Slum Upgrading Program. George?
Thank you, Elena. It's a pleasure, really, to have the opportunity to give closing remarks. And so a very good morning, afternoon, evening to all of you, depending on where you're joining us from. It is a pleasure, again, as I said, to give closing remarks to this wonderful session we had today. So this webinar highlighted the importance of bringing together representatives from grassroots innovation to foster peer learning and identify actionable pathways to scale innovation. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And so I take this opportunity to thank our speakers and all the participants for your time and contribution in the webinar. As highlighted throughout the discussion, empowering grassroots organizations and communities through strategic partnerships is crucial to overcoming many of the challenges that we face today. And that is why such partnerships must harness local expertise, promote inclusivity, and build capacity for scalable and sustainable solutions. As emphasized by our new executive director, UN Habitat will continue to partner with grassroots organizations and other key stakeholders to keep exploring how to localize, co-create, and sustain the innovations for long-term impact. This is because grassroots organizations and communities bring valuable opportunities for innovative-led, community-led interventions that integrate indigenous knowledge and localized approaches. Also from the discussions and also from previous experiences, grassroots innovations mostly represent incremental changes that are supported by local values and culture. So in this respect, government efforts to promote and strengthen grassroots movement should take into consideration customized and targeted policy instruments that are different from the traditional innovation and development agendas. We have, to keep, we can't keep doing the same thing over and over and expect different results. One thing that was very clear also in the presentation is the need for local economic development. So all our 4 presenters, Rafael, Theresa, Joseph, and Mino, have highlighted one thing that is coming out clearly, and that is the need for local economic development of the urban poor. So through different financing model that the organizations are implementing, for example, Rafael spoke on community grant fund. Theresa also spoke about community managed funds. Joseph talked on the local climate funds. And of course, very important, Mino also reminded us that it is important also to have agenda lens whenever we are designing these projects. And thanks to the work that all these grassroots organizations are doing. So from us at UN Habitat, of course, housing is our main agenda. And of course, UN Habitat believes that we cannot separate housing from element of livelihoods. So the grassroots communities have realized that they are also a major stakeholder in setting and achieving the housing agenda, raising critical issues such as the provision of social amenities that are otherwise ignored by private developers, as earlier highlighted by Joseph Kimani from SDI. And so we are convinced of the transformative power of communities and the importance of grassroots organizations as key actors today and in the years to come. So we need to continue building these partnerships where we complement each other and deliver with one shared vision together with local and national governments. So we need to we need local action to reach scale. We have now I can say less than 5 years left to implement the Sustainable Development Goals. So grassroots organizations are the key drivers who will ensure equitable approaches to deliver the SDGs and also localization of the SDGs. So we must continue steering the localization of the goals in our communities together with governments and all our stakeholders. So let us continue with the engagement in future events that relate to grassroots organizations and innovations. So with this, Elena, I would like to once again thank you for the facilitation. It has been a good session and wish everybody a good rest of the day. And asante sana, as we say it here in Nairobi, in our local Swahili language. And we look forward to engaging again soon. So goodbye for now, and back to you, Elena. Asante.
Thank you, George, and thank you to all our speakers, discussants, participants, and organizers for making this webinar a success. And Mika, are there any final reminders and follow-up steps to share to our participants before we wrap up?
Yeah, before we close the session, thank you all for the insights and also to everyone who joined as audience today. As a few follow-up actions, what you can expect from our side is the recording of this session that will be available on our channel. And we will also share a follow-up email with a write-up of the session also for the people who did not manage to join. And please feel free to contact us if you want to continue the discussions, if you have more ideas. We would be happy to support you and collaborate. And I wish you a good day or evening, wherever you joined us from. Thank you.